I don't know. I think that there's some psyops around people that want the HEX. I think are saying that HEX is going to dump, and I think people want to latch onto that because they think high fees are bad for HEX. And so I think combination of psyops and then misunderstanding of the impact of fees on price makes a lot of newer users think that HEX is just going to dump. And, so I don't know. I think that if I was to guess over the first, I don't know. I mean, I think that probably HEX will PHEX will be worth probably I would say 50% of the HEX value. So if HEX was, oh yeah, no, here's a better way to put it. So say HEX at the time of fork is 10 cents. I think that HEX itself will go down to 6 cents, and then PHEX will be 4 cents. And so your total value of your copy will be the same 10 cents. I even think the copy and it's kind of misleading. It's not so much like you're not getting a duplicate. It's actually it's getting split. Because if the same economic energy, it's you have your HEX, and now suddenly you have it's just your total number of units are extended, and then half of them are on another chain. Because that applied equally to everybody, it's as if no one got it. And so I've started to view that copy more as a split instead of a copy. So instead of EHEX being 1 cent, and then PHEX being or EHEX being 10 cents, PHEX being 10 cents on the copy day, and now you have 20 cents of, it's from your perspective, it's 20 cents. I think it's more both of the prices go down, but then the sum of them may be equal to what the original one was. So
you don't anticipate the OA making any moves around parity or a discount? Don't want to see cheap HEX anywhere. Is that still into play?
I mean, if anything, I would see them pegging it to parity by just having, because there's if you add up all the HEX that the OA and the sacrifice addresses have, the next largest independent holder is nowhere near the amount that they could just slap on both sides at 1-to-1 rate. And no, and even 100%, if 100% of users sold in one direction, they could only eat into some tiny part of that. And so if anything, I could see that happening. And maybe that'll just kind of be the legacy of the OA, is that what if they just slap those into a double-sided liquidity pool, burn the keys, because it's not like the OA can extract any USD value from their HEX anyways. And and the HEX just sitting liquid in that, even though I don't think Richard cares that people feel some way about that. But it would kind of resolve that. What if all that was just locked in a dual side liquidity pool, or but in effect, what's happening, the reason why I don't necessarily think that would happen, while it could be parity, is that providing liquidity means you're selling. And so it's even though the OA and the sacrifice HEX would be being sold for each other, any new person buying or selling, it's you're buying from that, and now that HEX is now freed up from kind of the locked up OA. And so it is a form of selling. And so I don't know, and maybe not with all of the HEX, but if anything, I could see something there just to pin it to parity, because the supply is just distributed so strongly in that direction that it could happen. But I mean, there's risk in doing that. I mean, I think that's why you don't see much liquidity provision now, because pretty high risk to be doing that. If you're pinning the price somewhere where the market doesn't want it to be, it's you're paying for it. So, and I don't think Richard wants to be paying for a price subsidy or something. So,
you think there's a limit to the benevolence then? You don't think that that may be where the line gets drawn?
Yeah, if a single act of benevolence prevented him from being able to do any further acts of benevolence, like, because he kind of lost that power, by, so I don't know. It's truly impossible to predict. And honestly, the OA could honestly do nothing. And that's also a great strategy as well. So, yeah, I don't think there's any saves to be made. And I think that, there are, actually, so I'm not sure. So I don't want to say this as fact, like as if this, but I heard someone talking about it I think it was Funnington talking about how, early on, so like right when HEX launched, when the first liquidity pool was set up, those coins may have been OA related, or like kind of like that whole like recycling thing where like it was ETH that had gone in. And so that HEX that was put in the liquidity pool at like the ultra low prices, there's huge financial loss there because you're effectively like like it's like the HEX price went up, but you end up with a bunch of ETH type of situation. And so that was one instance of like huge, like, opportunity cost for having like injected liquidity, which, is fine because if HEX is the coin, it's like, if you're going to inject it somehow, at least like, if that really was OA providing liquidity in the very early, like first couple months, what that really means is that the OA was selling the very bottom to new buyers, which is actually a fine thing. Like, that's awesome that Richard sold the bottom to everyone through the AA. And if like there was liquidity provision in those early days, like those are all HEX that could have been his, but they ended up with everyone else. And then the price went up a lot. And so, that kind of works, but like there is opportunity cost and like, just providing liquidity at prices that the market doesn't want to be at. And then also, I think that there's no way to confirm, because it was Bitcoin. It was like Bitcoin that went into the sacrifice. Right after the sacrifices, there was like an almost equivalent amount of wrapped Bitcoin that was put in, cashed out for USDC, and then a bunch of USDC was put in a liquidity pool at some price. I think it was like, I want to say 6 cents or something. And then it just got yoinked through, in this latest kind of rundown. And that's like big loss as well. Like if that was, like OA just like kind of buying HEX or sacrifice buying HEX, like there's huge financial cost in like trying to do anything to the price. And so if those were actually, because there's no way to really confirm if those were him, but if those are two experiences that he's had throughout all this, and those are two things where, effectively it's just like losses, then I would make it less likely to, for some big action to be taken to try to influence the market.
That's a great point and great pieces of data there too. As OA learn from previous experiences, if those happened, and how will it change their future moves? Like that's going to be interesting to look forward to and see.